Welcome back to the Out of Bounds podcast. I'm Charlie Caleri alongside
Gavin Williams.
And today we're going to be talking about a long overdue topic that we've been waiting to talk about, the NBA. We've been talking about college basketball a little bit. We talked about hockey a little bit. And we're going to finally get into some professional basketball. Gav, I mean, what do you think about the NBA right now that the NFL's done? We can fully get into it. And what are your expectations for the rest of the season?
The NBA itself has been very exciting. Obviously, you're talking to two of the biggest NBA fans on campus here because we really pay attention to it, whether it's still football season, whether it's hockey season. Doesn't matter what season it is. We're still watching. We keep up with our teams. And if we're not watching the games, we're studying the box scores. We're doing our research. So, obviously, this one's been really exciting. There's been some crazy emergences for some questionable teams from last year, which I've loved a lot, and yeah, that's how I'm feeling. I think the All-Star was a joke.
It was
absolute joke.
It was,
and I think they might have to just scrap it and just give them a week off.
So I was going to ask you about that before we get into all the teams real quick, but with the NHL doing the Four Nations and how successful that was
amazing.
I don't know how the NBA can do something like that. I don't think they really can.
I don't think they
with
can
all the
either.
various international talent from all the different countries. But is there a way you think that they could get the players to buy in again in some way?
I don't see it happening at all. To be honest with you, I've watched the All-Star game for probably, I don't know.
I didn't even watch it. I'm not gonna lie. Did not watch it.
I've been watching it for probably 10 years. I still watch it every year, just because there's nothing on that Sunday every year.
This is the first time I haven't watched it, since I think before I just was an NBA fan.
Yeah.
I think, and that was to the Four Nations as well, and just the lack of interest. I just wasn't. Also, Saturday night I tuned in during the USA-Canada game. Didn't interest me at all. I thought Chris Paul and Wemby doing that thing was completely fair, but a joke.
No, yeah,
and it just made the whole thing even more of a joke, and that's what kind of snowballed the whole event, I think. And after that, I was kind of just out on the Sunday, and unfortunately, especially after Mac McClung won for the third year in a row, I don't know, just the whole thing just seems to slowly be losing momentum. I saw a thing that was PK Subban was talking about it. Hockey's not a game that you can play kind of half-assed, for lack of a better term. Like basketball, you totally can. I mean, that's the most casual sport you can probably play.
Mm-hmm.
But hockey, I mean, you got to go all out. If you're not going all out, you're going to get laid out.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're going to get hurt. Yeah.
You might as well just go all out. So, and also, it's just a buy-in with the players. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, obviously, the only buy-in the NBA has really seen in the last few years wasn't even for the NBA. It was for the Olympics last year. It was when LeBron was like, all right, we've had enough of this after the 2023 World Cup. I mean, and then finally that's when you see it. But you don't see it on the league scale.
No, and the only thing I have to really say about players buying in, throughout the past, like I said, around 10 years or so, the last All-Star game that was worth watching was 2020. After Kobe passed, that's the only time anybody
in Chicago. That was awesome. Yeah,
that was the only time people wanted to buy in, and that I think will be the last time the players will buy in.
Unfortunately, yeah, and especially
they tried shortening the games. I like what they tried to do. I saw the vision that could have been like shorter games, maybe higher intensity, but it was shorter games. It wasn't worse. I think it was a little tiny.
And there was
bit better.
no basketball. There was like 30 minutes of actual basketball.
So
I think also an issue which isn't really it's a two-way straight year, but I think it's also an issue that you get the same guys in there every year. You get even down to the James Harden. You get Harden, you get LeBron, you get Steph Curry, you get KD every year that they're healthy. Giannis when they're healthy, Jokic when they're healthy. I mean, you get the same guys every year in the game, and obviously, those guys are trying to build a resume, but either expand their All-Star rosters or I don't know. I mean, it's just or think of a different way to vote on it. But every year when you get the fan vote and it's the same guys
fan
getting
vote's
in every year,
bullshit every year.
It's just, I don't know. And not to say that some guys shouldn't have been. They all deserve to be All-Stars every year, which is the craziest part. But when these guys have been in it for the 20th year, I mean, and then LeBron's still trying to get another championship.
Yeah.
And KD's trying to figure out stuff with his team during the time. And Steph's trying to figure out his relationship with KD. And Harden's trying to compete for something in the Western Conference. We don't know yet. But all those guys, I mean, they're trying to compete, and especially when they're on the same team as well. That didn't help. Also, Chuck, Kenny, Shaq, Ernie, love those guys more than anything.
Yeah.
But like somebody said, they're the worst thing for the NBA right now because they don't care.
No, they don't
care. So how are the fans supposed to care?
Yeah.
They joke about the NBA, so it's a joke to other people. It's just how you perceive it, how it's presented to people. NHL, they don't present it like that.
Nope.
NFL, they definitely don't present it like that. They never would.
No.
MLB, they don't. NBA is the only one that does. They shouldn't do that. And I think that's why the viewership and the buy-in has been less.
Yeah, and I think with all that being said, there's one true sport everybody likes to watch when it comes to an all-star is hockey. And I think it outlies, I mean, you see football, they scrapped everything. And they went to this flag football, which people don't watch.
I think it's baseball, honestly, because hockey, the last 3-on-3 tournaments have been terrible.
They have.
Baseball, baseball's another sport. You can't half-ass baseball. Like, you can't throw a pitch at 90 miles an hour. It won't even be close to this. Like, you have to throw at your full speed. Like, you can't throw a ball, slower. And I don't know. It's just nothing would work in that case. So I think baseball's kind of the same way as hockey. You can obviously not run, but pitching and hitting wise, you're gonna have to be all in. But
yeah,
it's part of the game.
Something I've been noticing from baseball all-star breaks, so it's like they are getting progressively worse with trying, and that's
that's fair.
That's the thing that I just give hockey all the credit. I mean, everybody's been talking about it for the past 2.5 weeks, is how great hockey has rebuilt their sport to probably be the number 2 again.
I honestly think that this tournament right here, I don't think we're going to see, obviously we're not going to see the 92 Olympics type of boom from basketball, but I think this is really going to help international. We've seen hockey get so much global attention over the last few years. I know this is an NBA episode, but we're talking about hockey a lot, but they had an Asian international competition, which they had 16 teams in there. There's 16 Asian countries playing hockey in a tournament, and a few of them are really, really good too. I know China's come up and coming on their teams. I know Kazakhstan has been always pretty good in there, and obviously Russia's been pretty good as well. But I'm excited for international competition, the Olympics next year for hockey.
It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be awesome. But let's take a step back right now. Let's get into the NBA. Let's start in the Western Conference, and we're gonna start at the bottom. And we're going to go through, if you want to explain this a little bit, what we're going to be doing today.
So, what in my opinion is the best ESPN show to watch when you wake up in the morning. It's called Get Up. It's the best one out there. Like, First Take doesn't touch it, in my opinion, because that just gets too annoying.
Too many clicks.
And then Sports Center is just too repetitive. When you get Up with Mike Greeny, that's all you want to watch. He's great. Green's a great guy. He's always got a couple guys with him. Like, he's got Jeff Saturday here and there. He'll get Dan Orlovsky on. He switches it up, and it gets really interesting. And they do this segment that I was just watching a couple days ago where they went through the NBA teams, and they were asking each other if presented the team. So, for example, we'll do the Utah Jazz first. On their season, their expectations, how they're doing, all things combined, is their season awesome, awkward, or awful? So if it's awesome, obviously that kind of says it's self-explanatory, but awkward could be like maybe a bad team from last year is doing great and it's just awkward to see them good again, or they could just be in an awkward position where they're at right now, and then awful says enough about itself as well. So we'll just kick it right off with the Utah Jazz, and I think both of ours will be the same. I'm going to say awful. 14-43. They're 7-21 at home, 7-22 on the road. I mean, they're just garbage. They don't have anything going for them anymore. I mean, Kessler's not doing enough anymore. They don't have Jordan Clarkson's not doing enough. They don't have that drive that they had 2 years ago when we were talking about them around this time where they were like the 4 seed.
Yeah, and like you said, about 2 years ago, obviously before they got rid of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, they were the 1 seed in the West a few years ago as well. But yeah, in the top echelon of the NBA in general. But the Jazz and Pelicans, I'm going to group them together, the 15 and 14 seed. They both have very similar seasons this year. Same record, actually, by the way, right now, 14-43. Although the Pelicans have been doing better as of late. But they're both in a spot where they have experienced players that aren't playing as well as they need to, like the Pelicans getting rid of Brandon Ingram here, which is a good move for them. Long time coming. But then you get to see these young players like a Kyle Filipowski or a Keontae George on the Jazz, or on the Pelicans you get to see a Yves Missi, who's been really, really underrated center for them this year, at top of the Rookie of the Year voting for them. And then you get to see more of guys like Jose Alvarado, who everybody I enjoy watching.
I enjoy watching him play.
And just some other guys that they had there. Both teams are going to be trying to get Cooper Flagg in the draft.
Yeah.
But to know that they still have good young players that aren't producing well, like a Walker Kessler, like a Colin Sexton, those kind of guys. They'll be better in the future, and hopefully for those teams, they can start to build up again.
Yeah.
I think Utah's kind of in this rut where they're trying to help the hockey team a little bit more than the basketball team right now.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of that has to do with a lot of the new ownership too, balancing that thing. But I think when they get both of those going, Utah sports is going to be fun. It's going to be electric back to what it used
Salt
to
Lake
be.
City is amazing. I mean, that city itself is so electric, and it's going to be a fun place to be when both teams are up high.
But for right now, I'm going to say the Pelicans and the Jazz, both awful, especially the Pelicans.
Yeah, I'll put the Pelicans in awful as well, especially they cannot escape Zion Williamson not being healthy. He's always hurt. I mean, if I'm the Pelicans, I'm completely rebranding. I'm getting rid of him. I'm scratching it all. And I think they just got to start fresh again. And I don't think they have
to change the colors or something.
Yeah. Like I don't think the Pelicans have the set of onions to do that though.
No, they don't have
they have a good market, but with the good market and a bad team, they don't mix well. And if you have a bad team and a good market, nobody's going to pay attention. But if you have a good team and a good market, or at least an up and coming team and a good market, that's something the fans are going to want to look forward to, and there's nothing to look forward to in New Orleans.
No.
So it's awful.
Now, speaking of onions, if you haven't watched or listened to our last episode about our favorite broadcasters, go listen to that. Bill Raftery was mentioning that. Not a play-by-play guy, but onions nonetheless, double order. I'm going to go to the 13th seed here in the West, the Trailblazers. I'm going to say they've had an awkward year because I think they should be a lot worse than they actually are. They're definitely outplaying their expectations. Donovan Klingen's been great this year. Scoot Henderson's been pretty good when he's been healthy. Denny Avdija has been good when he's been healthy. This team could be a play-in team by the end of the year if they keep this pace up. I don't think it's going to happen, and I think they're really hurting their chances for Cooper Flagg. But seeing this development with the team, I think it's just a little bit of an awkward situation where you should be worse, but getting a top 4 pick would have been tough for them regardless. So I think overall it's been a pretty good year. I think that's why it's awkward though for me.
Yeah, I'm also going to say awkward. Pretty much the same reasons. They were just supposed to be bottom of the West, if not the second worst. And it's weird. I mean, I know they're only the third worst, but they're the type of team that can go challenge any team on any given night. If someone like the Thunder's having a bad night, don't be surprised if the Trailblazers come out
They've
there.
done it, and they've done it.
And they can go out there and chalk a couple teams. But overall, with the season, it's just awkward just because they're not great. They're not the worst, but they're still really bad, but not as bad as I thought. So I'm going to say awkward for them as well.
For the Spurs here, I'm going to go awful, honestly. They were about the same place last year that they are now. A little bit worse, actually. But so they have improved, but obviously Wemby going down with his blood clot issue there, that's huge
really
for
bad.
them. Bringing in Chris Paul's is big, and they were playing really well, but then you start to lose a ton of games, and you're already back to the 12th seed. They were in the play-in mix for a while there. Bringing in another guy like Harrison Barnes, you bring in some veteran talent, and it just doesn't work out for you. I think it's awful because I think they should have been in a play-in team this year, haven't reached those expectations, and I think they're going to be better next year.
Yeah,
when Wemby's fully healthy, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm going to say awkward for the Spurs as well, just because of everything going on with the team itself, including the coaching staff, like Pop.
That's another reason too for awful. I think all the medical stuff has just been terrible.
Yeah, they just couldn't catch a break this year, and I do truly believe if Wemby didn't have to get sidelined for the rest of the year, I think they would have still had a chance to even break a play-in spot potentially, with maybe Sacramento falling. But I think they have a ton of future now that they just got out and they got De'Aaron Fox, and that's why I'm not giving them the awful rating, because they wanted to go out there, they wanted to get better. They really tried to surround their number one prospect ever to go get a ring. And obviously it wasn't going to be done this year, and everybody knows that, but they at least tried. So it's a little bit more awkward than awful, because the amount that they tried and the amount that they're looking for towards the future, as well as having those veteran roles and Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes, it's going to help the development of Wemby, and it's going to help the development of De'Aaron Fox.
100%, yeah.
Because De'Aaron Fox doesn't have to be a number one option anymore. He can go take a number 2 role, be himself a little bit more at like the Kentucky era of.
Right.
I mean, he was the number one option there,
and even
but he could play more free like he did at Kentucky.
And even if Chris Paul leaves after this year, I mean, even having these next few months with him, and just creating a relationship for the future is going to be really big for De'Aaron Fox. I think for his playmaking ability, which he's already a great scorer, but That's something he's been kind of lacking in the last few years. Is because maybe a Sabonis too, helping him out over there. But I think that's a whole thing that could really help that franchise as a whole.
Yeah, they're on the up. They just gotta get healthy, including Pop. Coach Pop, you gotta get better
for sure. The 11th seed now, the Phoenix Suns, awful again. They still have everybody healthy on their team, but just hasn't been good. Bradley Beal's been terrible this year. Nurkic just dropped out completely out of their rotation. Then they eventually traded him to Charlotte, which nobody expected at the beginning of the year. The only bright side for them has really been Ryan Dunn, the rookie. That's really played well when nobody else has. But overall, the Suns team doesn't have any depth. I think we saw that. And when the players aren't playing well, like KD and D-Book, they have no chance to win a game. So I'm going to say awful.
I'm also going to say awful for the Suns. I think these past 2 years have been a dumpster fire for what their expectations were. And their expectations were to at least be in the top 6, to at least get a not play-in situation. And I know last year they did make the playoffs, and they did horrible, though. But this year, they're not even sniffing a playoff spot, and I don't think they're even going to get into the play-in situation, which means it's another year where KD cannot go off in the playoffs with his nice fadeaway jumper. It's tough to watch because I'm a big Kevin Durant fan. I've always have been. I'm not a big D-Book fan, so I do like seeing this downfall, but I love Bradley Beal. So I like 2 guys, I don't like 1. And I want to see the 2 other guys succeed, and it's tough because Bradley Beal was an absolute star at Washington, and he did a lot of stuff by himself, but now that he's surrounded by some weapons, it's hard to separate himself anymore. And
yeah, I said Bradley. Sorry to interrupt, but I said Bradley Beal's kind of that one player that he's kind of that player that's on just a bad team his whole career, but he's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have a perfect example for maybe a Baron Davis type of guy.
Yeah.
But somebody like that, where Bradley Beal led the league in points about 2 years ago. I think Westbrook was a lot of help with that. But nonetheless, I mean, he's still a great player. Was averaging 30 points 2 years ago. He should be averaging about 20 this year.
He should,
I think he's averaging around 16 or 17, if that.
Yeah.
So he's got to step it up for them for sure.
I also think this could also be linked back to a coaching problem. I don't think that they should have ever fired.
No, they shouldn't. They shouldn't have.
And I mean,
they fired Monty Williams.
Yeah, I mean, if they just kept Monty Williams and helped him develop with a KD and with a Bradley Beal, it would have, because obviously he coached KD, but that's such a great coach. And now we see what he's doing in the East, and he's succeeding very much. Is he still coaching?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
You could tell that his coaching resume was great, and then
he's
he got
coaching.
then he got fired, and now it was awful, and now it's great again. So you just need a good coach, and I also think this is a coaching problem out in Phoenix right now. So it's just plain awful.
Sitting at the 10-seeder right now, the bottom spot, the play-in, is the Sacramento Kings. And I think the Kings, I think honestly their season's been awkward. I was going to say awful, but the only thing that's keeping it from awful is adding Zach LaVine. I think that's so huge for the future there. Obviously, getting rid of De'Aaron Fox is tough. I mean, that's a guy that was there, and that was a cornerstone for. I mean, I think about De'Aaron Fox. I think about the Sacramento Kings. It's 1-1. But bringing in Zach LaVine, a talent like that with Sabonis, they complement each other so well. Sabonis can space the floors. LaVine, he's struggled to space the floor a little bit in recent years, but he's gotten it back a little bit. And especially with guys like Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, who can definitely stretch the floor for them.
Yeah.
I just think it's overall a good piece for Sacramento. I think he fits kind of the mold there. Getting out of the big city, moving to a smaller market. I think that could help Zach LaVine too, kind of rein in his career and his play. I think their season's been awkward though. Overall.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with the awkward standpoint. I just think that with the addition of Zach LaVine in Sacramento, it's been great for that team for these past couple of weeks, but I think that they still have a lot to figure out. Obviously, getting rid of their franchise guy sucks, but it was a move that had to be done, and it proved that right now it's working out. But I also thought they were going to be worse, so same kind of thing with the Trailblazers. So I think they're doing a little bit better than I was expecting. So I'm going to give the same rating as awkward, just because I don't think they'll even get into the playoffs, but maybe they sniff a play-in. I wouldn't also be surprised if they fell off as well. So I'm just going to give it a nice little awkward.
Yeah, moving on now to the Golden State Warriors, which is an interesting team. Definitely interested to hear what you think about them, but I'm just gonna say awkward. Kind of the same thing as the Kings. It's kind of you get a trade to avoid that awful tier, and I think bringing Jimmy Butler, obviously, I don't think it's going to help you necessarily as much for the future, but I think for right now with this team, I don't think they have enough to really get it done this year, but I think getting him out of a space where he didn't want to be, a place where he apparently wants to be, I don't know. But I think overall, I think it's awkward. I think that's just the best way to describe it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm actually also going all awkward. I just think it's awkward to see the Warriors play. Yeah, Steph, you got Draymond, but you don't see the Clay anymore. And that was a really big piece to those 4 championships.
He just played back in Golden State the other day, too.
Yeah.
And it was just weird again.
Yeah, I mean, the dynasty that they made and created and was historical is no more. But now you bring in someone like Jimmy Butler, who's a little bit younger. Not much younger, but a little bit younger. And who's still playing very high right now, who clearly wanted out of Miami for a long time, had a ton of feuds with them, which I'm glad because I love that Jimmy Butler's not in the East anymore. Through all that pain I went through, but I loved seeing him succeed again because I liked rooting for him. I didn't like rooting for him in Miami, though, and not in Philly as well. So the fact that he's back in the West, I can go back to rooting for him. I like him again, and that addition kept this team from being an awful tier because he rebounded their season and he's putting up numbers and he's complimenting Steph Curry well because he spaces out the floor more, not for Steph but for himself.
Right.
He gets the room which he didn't get in Miami because everybody smothered him.
And also in Miami, he didn't need to. He had Duncan Robinson, he had Tyler Hero. Even Bam can shoot it. I mean, he didn't have to shoot the ball, but I agree with you. I think getting the opportunity to space it with the best spacer of all time,
exactly.
It's really going to help. So
So I'm going to give it an awkward, but if they do make the playoffs, I think it turns into awesome.
I would agree with that. Now we're getting into the playoff kind of tier.
Yep.
Still in the play-in, but we're at the 8 seed now. Dallas Mavericks. I want to hear what you had to say about this first.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts about this.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say awful for the Dallas Mavericks. Coming off of a finals loss to the Boston Celtics. Sorry, I just had to shout them out real quick. But there was obviously very high expectations for them this year. They were expected to finish at least top 3. They just came off of a historical playoff run with Luka's best playoff run. I mean, no, we didn't play the best in the finals, but overall playoffs, that's the best he's ever played. And you still have Kyrie, you got Luka, you have Derek Lively Jr.
Who got hurt.
He did. And I'm not even mentioning all their pieces because they're pretty deep, or they were pretty deep. And then obviously the biggest in-season trade happened of all time, and they got rid of the face of the biggest face since Dirk Nowitzki. And you don't do that at all. You don't get rid of Luka. I don't care if they said it was 2-7. You get through. You gotta get through get over the bumps and bruises to get over the humps, man. And they didn't care about the bumps and bruises. They wanted to ship them out because they're terrified of that Supermax contract. And I understand it's a business, but that's not a business move. That felt a little too personal. And with that, they've been having a horrible season for their expectations. They were slotted to be a top 3 seed in the West. Now they're sniffing 8. I don't even think they make the playoffs this year. This is awful garbage fire for what their season was supposed to be, coming off of a finals appearance.
I'm with you there. If any team, this is awful for me. Trading all the things combined, right? Losing the finals last year, expectations. I don't think they're supposed to be top 3, but I see where you're coming from. All coming off of finals, they lost Derrick Jones, they lost Dorian Finney-Smith, guys like that. Derek Lively goes down early this year. That doesn't help at all. That was supposed to be their second best player or third best player. Kyrie was out here and there at the start of the year. Luka was having conditioning issues out here and there throughout the year. Whole thing's been awful for Dallas this year, coming off that finals run. It's really unfortunate too, especially from a guy who gets knocked out by Dallas about every other year.
Yeah.
And Luka now. I got to watch Luka now play in the same town as me. I don't love that. For a team that I hate more than any other team, more than the Kansas City Chiefs, probably. And now I got to watch that for the next however many years of his career.
We don't know yet.
Really stinks. But I think the season for the Mavericks has been awful. Losing Anthony Davis, obviously, he played well in the 3 quarters that he played.
He did.
We don't know how much he's gonna be back for at the end of the season. It's really gonna help or hurt them for now for him being out, because they're in a really tight conference and playing race in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
So I think overall the season's been awful for them, especially for their fan base. Feel really bad for them, honestly. Which is hard to say for a team that just made the finals and just made a Western Conference Finals 2 years before that. But
Yeah.
I feel really bad for that fan base. And I hope soon enough they can get their new Luka.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
And
we'll
Dirk.
see that.
And Dirk.
Yeah, maybe we'll see that happen sometime in the future. But now we'll go on to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and this one's tough for me. They lost Cat, obviously, in the trade, and obviously feeling a little bit more bare bones than what Anthony Edwards is used to. But I don't want to count them out, because they're still a very, very good team, very well coached, have the, in my opinion, best young star in the league. I think Anthony Edwards is really emerging this season, just like last season. But I don't know if I could put him in the awesome tier, but I don't know if I could put him in the awkward tier as well. So to put all things aside, I'm gonna put out there, I'm gonna put him in the awesome tier, just for the fact that they can still win without having their number one center. And I think the emergence of Rudy Gobert really, really playing better than being. They had the 2 center, and it was an really awkward situation they had last year. But now that like Rudy can go back to being himself, and I don't think they're bad enough to be in the awkward tier. So I'm just gonna keep them in the awesome tier. But if there was a middle ground, I'd put them right in the middle ground there.
You described it perfectly. I think they are in the awkward tier, in my opinion. But I think they could definitely be awesome tier by even the end of the regular season.
Oh, yeah.
I think honestly, they were awkward at the start of the year. They didn't know how to play together.
Mm-hmm.
They had to implement Naz Reid into a role which he wasn't ready for, I don't think, yet. But now he's really accustomed to it and been so good for them. Arguably, probably their second best player.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert's been great defensively again this year. He had to kind of get back into the role that he was in Utah. That took a little bit.
It did.
Ant had to embrace being a leader now.
Yeah,
on
which
the court,
is not.
Which is not what he
he's
had.
He's a child.
He didn't have to do that. And
it's
then,
okay though.
And then now, especially with taking all the shots and being the full-on guy, 48 minutes a game.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure on him too.
It's huge.
As just as well as everybody else on the team as well, including their coach. Losing Cat's huge for a guy that was there for 10 years.
Oh yeah, drafted number 1.
Yeah,
everything.
And I think just overall, I think the team is awkward this year, but I think definitely could be awesome moving forward in the next few months.
No, definitely.
Depending
I
on where
completely
they
agree.
finish, though.
Now we're going on to inside the playoff picture. Kick it off right with your team over there.
Yeah, we're having. I'm gonna say awesome. I've had a very enjoyable, one of the most enjoyable times since 2018-19 watching the Clippers. Probably in the Kawhi era, this is definitely my most enjoyable team. I don't think that's any coincidence that PG's not on the team. I'll just say that. But the fact that Kawhi hasn't even really played much this year, he's been on a minutes restriction, and even in the games where he hasn't been on a minutes restriction, he and the team have played really well. Bringing in a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., who we just talked about, so good, played so good last night. We lost to a Pistons team who's won 7 in a row now, who we will talk about in a little bit. But overall, Chris Dunn, great addition for the team. It feels like he averages 5 steals a game. He had 5 the other night. Nick Batum's been amazing this year. Bringing him back from Philly, I think, was great. And I'm not the biggest Batum guy, not the biggest guy in the Batum battalion, but he's been great defensively this year because he doesn't have to take shots. That's why.
Yeah.
Norman Powell, obviously, most improved player, should be this year. Improved his average by 10 points.
Yeah,
he's been so good.
unreal.
Zubac averaging a double-double. I think he's 3rd in the NBA in rebounds per game. 2nd overall in total rebounds. He's just been so good, and obviously James Harden at the point of it all. Not obviously, but leading in the NBA in turnovers. But at the same time, he has one of the highest usage rates in the league, and it's just because he's trying to get balls in tight windows for his teammates. I think that's a lot of it too. If you watch the games, I don't get bothered by his turnovers that much because he's trying to force it into spots where not many people really try to force balls. But this is a defensive identity team. I like that for our team. I like that in the playoffs because that's a defensive-minded time of the year, especially the way that the league is going now. But I think overall, if we can stay healthy, we're going to move as far as Kawhi is going to take us this year. And I think the season's been awesome. I can't really complain too much. Everybody doubted us after losing PG, such a big piece, but we allocated that money very well, giving it to different guys. Didn't even mention Amir Coffey off the bench. Didn't even mention Patty Mills, Drew Eubanks, who we just got. We just got Bogdanovich, who's been all right. He did play terrible last night, but he was all right. He's been all right. But I think overall, this team, the ceiling, Western Conference Final, realistically, I think we actually win a round. I think we go to the second round.
All right. The LA Clippers, I'm going to give an awesome rating. Pure facts is they lost their number 2 guy, what can be seen as, and losing someone like Paul George is a big hit, especially because he was there for 4-ish years.
And especially how it's turned out.
No, yeah.
That's the other part of the awesome part is that how bad the Sixers have been, how bad he's been, and
we'll get into that
his
in a little bit.
podcast has been. All things involved, Clippers have been awesome.
Yeah, we'll get into the Sixers in a little bit, but I think that also just like Charlie just said, how bad they're doing furthers the awesome tier for the Clippers because they've been bare bones this year, and what people thought were going to be bare bones, not Bones Highland, but just everybody thought it was. This is going to sound weird because it's a different sport, but I could also see it the same. I could see the Bills' preseason expectations and the LA Clippers' preseason expectations pretty similar. That everybody thought after the losing pieces, it wasn't going to be as good of a year, but they're here. Number 6 seed, really close to sniffing the play-in. If they just got to separate themselves a little bit more.
We've lost 3 in a row. Last night we should have won. We gave that one up. The Pistons are a great team. They're a great defensive team, but we could not make a shot. Pacers game, we get crushed by the Pacers every time. They're too fast for us. They're way too fast. But we got the Bulls coming up. We got a really tough schedule coming up. Bulls coming up, Lakers coming up. We got to really lock in here if we want to stay out of the play-in, I guess. But looking at this 4 to 6 range right now, I'm very happy to be in that range. I just don't want to get put up against an OKC or Denver first round.
No, yeah,
That's
definitely.
Really
and to go on with my point, I just think they exceeded expectations. They're playing at a high level. I think the Clippers really found their way with James Harden finally. I don't think he had a true identity on this team until this season. He's got the identity back. We're back to seeing James Harden play some basketball, chucking up some threes, couple travels that aren't called.
It's the first time since Houston he's had his own team.
Exactly, and that furthers my point. Especially without Kawhi, he can finally be himself. And I think when Kawhi comes back, it's not going to hurt it. So, because of the obviously there's a defensive nature there that you should play a hard-nosed defense, and when you bring one of the best defenders of all time back in there, it's going to help. Hopefully not hurt, because we've seen in past years it's hurt. But I think if he can just get back before April,
he's back.
I know, but like fully. Like,
yeah.
If he can just get like fully into the rotation again before March 15th-ish, around your birthday, March 14th, Pi Day, I think that LA Clippers can exceed awesome as well. So I'm going to put them in the awesome tier.
Let's move on now to, as much as I want to talk about the Clippers all day, let's move on now to one of our correspondence teams.
My Western Conference
Mr.
team.
Ian Kennedy. Talk about the Houston Rockets, and anything but awesome here just would be wrong.
Yep.
This team is 35-22. Nobody expected them to
Complete
be
flip.
here, at least. I expect them to be in the play-in for sure, but nobody expected them to be the 5 seed. They were the 2 seed for a lot of the season.
Yeah.
Kind of falling off now, but still at the 5 seed.
They're just
Great
getting
for the
humbled
Rockets.
right now.
I just think it's been awesome overall. Everything's been great for them. Sengun, Jalen Green, Amen Thompson. Awesome.
No, yeah, they've been awesome all year. I don't think I have to say too much about the Rockets because everybody knows their season took a complete 180 from last year. And I think the Houston Rockets really turned things around. Ime Udoka is a great coach that they will have for the next 7 seasons probably because he's going to carry that team far. I don't think they're going to go crazy this year in the playoffs. They might be a first-round exit. I hate to say it, depending on their matchup, which right now it's slated to be the Lakers. But I think in the coming years they're going to be a true threat to the Western Conference, and especially with the emergence of Sengun finally back from injury. And then we have Amen Thompson, who obviously earlier in the year had a huge game winner over my Celtics. So this team could compete with the biggest of boys in the NBA, and that's what I really like to see from the Rockets as a young core with a couple vets on the team. Awesome season so far.
Yeah, for sure. A guy like Steven Adams in there as well.
Yeah, huge.
Back from injury as well. 4 seed now, team that's really shot up the standings in the last few weeks. The Lakers. It's been awesome for them. Getting
that must have been really tough.
It is tough.
Yeah.
But getting Luka Doncic, I mean, you really can't dispute that any other way. You already have LeBron James on your team. That's pretty awesome as well. But them also moving up in the standings, that's been awesome for them. They got rid of Darvin Ham. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I hate this. I hate this so much. But it's been awesome for them.
Yeah. I'm not going to speak too much on them either. That's the thing I love about our friendship over here is we both hate the Lakers. I think Charlie's got a bigger hole with them because I wasn't born through the Magic Larry Bird era. So I still hate the Lakers a lot, though. A lot. And this is tough to see them succeed so much, but their season has been awesome. And it was really tough to watch Dalton Connect get traded, then get waived. It was a weird
the whole thing
circumstance.
was weird,
But I really like to see LeBron's getting him back into it. Obviously, you got Austin Reeves, you got Luka now, we got LeBron. They're just kind of missing that big man, Anthony Davis, that they had to get rid of to get Luka, which obviously would have been a huge pickup for them, but couldn't get the physical right or whatever it was. But I think that this Lakers team has exceeded some expectations where everybody thought they were going to be hovering around 8-9. They're sitting at 4. They've been great. I mean, 6-4 in their last 10, not amazing, but their January was where it was. Their January through mid-February was the build-up of where they are now.
Yeah, I agree. We're getting to the top 3 now in the Western Conference. Memphis Grizzlies. I'm going to say awesome. The amount of guys that were out with injury last year that have come back and be great for them, including Jaren Jackson Jr., which could be a problem for them in the future. Now with Wemby going out, could win Defensive Player of the Year, which would make him eligible for the Supermax that the Mavs didn't want to give Luka.
Yeah.
And Memphis probably can't pay that. So that would be an issue right there. But for Memphis overall, besides that, everything's been awesome for them. Ja's been great. Desmond Bane's been great when he's been healthy. Jaren Jackson's been their foundation for the last 2 years, but he's been great too. And then guys like Jalen Wells, rookie coming in. Zach Edey, rookie coming in, been great. Gigi Jackson, young guy, coming in and be great. They're scary for the future, honestly, especially with a coach like Taylor Jenkins at the helm. And that fan base gets into it too. Obviously, grit and grind when they're good. Grizzlies are tough. I want to see them in the playoffs. Them or the Rockets. That's my preferable matchup at the 4, 5, 6 range. 3 through 6 range. That's where I'm hoping we'll be. And I'm hoping we get matched up against one of those teams, not the Lakers. But Grizzlies overall, I think it's been awesome.
No, I completely agree. It has been awesome. I also think that from last season to this season, they've really turned things around. Obviously, it's a big help when Ja Morant's not suspended for 22, 24 games, what it was. And he's really emerging. He's playing fantastic. He wasn't supposed to dunk the ball. He's right back to where he was. And seeing guys like Triple J get back into it, I love seeing him. And then I think the one part of this team that just hurts to watch was they got rid of Marcus Smart. And obviously I have such a love for Marcus Smart. And the fact that he had to go to the worst team in the East from third team in the West really sucks. But Memphis is doing good themselves. They're having a great year. Awesome rating. And now we'll get into the Denver Nuggets.
If you're fine with that, can I group in the last 2?
Yeah.
I mean, Denver and OKC, I think they're kind of the same ballpark. Both so good last year, continuing it this year. I think it's awesome for both of them, especially OKC.
Except for that loss last night.
They have the youngest team in the NBA, and they're the best team in the NBA. Like that doesn't happen. They have the MVP on their team. I don't think anybody can really. I know Jokic has all the advanced analytics right now in his favor, but if you watch the games,
it's Shea.
He doesn't miss a shot, and it doesn't miss a free throw. But I think the Thunder and Nuggets, for me, in my opinion, are both been awesome this year.
I'm gonna group them together as well because obviously the 1 and 2 they've both been great. Past 10 games, Nuggets 9-1, Thunder 8-2 with a loss last night to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I don't know if you saw that. The fourth quarter, Timberwolves ended off winning the game on a 16-0 run, which is really electric for that fan base. But huge seasons for these two so far. Obviously where we thought they were going to be. And if it wasn't OKC at 1, it was going to be Denver at 1. I mean, we all knew that these were going to be the top 2.
Denver was pretty low. They were about around the Clippers for a lot of the season, but since they've gotten fully healthy, they've been back up at the 2 seed.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of
They're
happened.
going to stay there too.
Yeah, that's been happening the past couple of years too. Like they've been kind of going through injuries, but once they get healthy, they rise all the way up to at least 3. So they've both found their footing, and it's good to see. And OKC, Denver Nuggets, both awesome.
All right, before we end the Western Conference, who do you think in the playoffs is going to come out on top?
That's a really
in
tough
the Western
question.
Conference.
I'm gonna stick with the Nuggets. I do think that it will be OKC Denver conference final. And I said this last year to my reasoning for OKC losing, and it's tough to say it again, but I did count out OKC because of experience, and that is what boiled their season last year was experience. They didn't have any playoff experience, and they do now. But once May, June comes around, you don't want to be playing Jokic. And I'm going to put the Nuggets to go to the finals this year. If we were to say it right now.
As much as I want to say my Clippers, I'm not going to. I'm going to say the Thunder. I get it. I get it, the experience thing, but I think this team's different. I think last year it was the same thing. I don't think it's going to – I don't know. I just feel like a lot of the times you can use that narrative for 2 years.
Yeah.
It'll totally work. I feel like this is a different situation. I think we saw
it does feel
I
different.
think we saw it with the Chiefs. I think that was the kind of thing where it was they got to the Patriots and then it was, they ran into Brady.
Yeah.
They're done. They get back the next year. Everybody's like, well, I don't know how this is going to go. I mean, you got that at that point it was 2 inexperienced teams, Bills and Chiefs.
Yeah.
Chiefs got the upper hand there. Then they're where they are now.
And the rest of
the rest is history, right? Yeah. I think we could be seeing a similar thing this year with Memphis and OKC.
Okay.
And OKC takes that next step into that dynasty kind of level. I'm not saying they're going to get there right now, but I think we could see that jump this year. I think OKC comes out of the West.
Nice. All right. So I have Denver. Charles over there has OKC. Now we'll get into the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and we can definitely group some teams in here together because the East is a lot more of a structured kind of.
It's always.
Yeah, it's usually the same.
I think
teams.
we got one good year. I think it was our freshman year where it was a little bit more balanced.
It was when the Cavs started to become good again.
Yeah,
I think that's when it all started to change, and the Pacers were good.
Yeah,
but starting at the bottom here, let's talk about the team you just talked about with Marcus Smart getting Chris Middleton as well.
Yeah,
really
weird to see.
The Washington Wizards. I mean, they're such a weird team, such a young and old and weird team, and bad, bad. They got rid of Kuzma for Chris Middleton, which is such a weird trade for the Bucks as well. We'll talk about the Bucks in a little bit. But the Wizards are actually playing a lot better, and they're 4-6 in their last 10. But they're still 10-47, so they're really bad.
Oh yeah.
They're tanking for Cooper Flag, and it's just been awful for them the last few seasons.
Obviously awful. They tried the Kuzma Poole thing, didn't work out, and it's not looking anything as bright on the other side, except for hopefully landing Cooper Flag.
Maybe landing Cooper Flag. Sarr's been okay.
It's all right.
He hasn't been as good as they thought he would be. Guess maybe you need some guys around him to be good.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Maybe.
Hornets, kind of a similar situation. I'm going to group them in as awful, especially with that trade falling through. I know keeping Mark Williams is great.
Yeah.
But I think that trade was great for both sides.
It was.
But I think in the long run, actually, I think keeping Mark Williams is going to help that team. I think they can use him on another trade in the future. If they do want to trade him in the offseason, I think they should, just because they already expressed interest in trading him.
Yeah.
If I'm the Hornets, though, it's kind of the same situation as the Pelicans. They don't have an identity.
No.
I think they need to I don't know what they need to do. I mean, they have LaMelo. Do they trade LaMelo and try to just start fresh with some young pieces? They have to get Flag in the draft to really be successful here. I would like the Hornets to get them because I want a new team in the East. I mean, I think LaMelo and Cooper Flag would be a deadly duo, especially with Mark Williams in there as well. And I think that team could be, in Brandon Miller too. I think that team could be competitive next year in the East if they're all healthy, if they get Cooper Flag.
Yeah.
But for now, it's been awful.
No, yeah, I mean, I just hope there's a year where I don't have to say the awful for the Hornets. I mean, I'm just waiting for them to at least sniff a play. I don't know. It's awful. I think it's self-explanatory for me.
Moving on now to the Raptors. This has been awful as well. Their guys have been relatively healthy all year. Bringing in Brandon Ingram is great. And I think that would be maybe where I move them into the awkward tier or even awesome tier. But Scotty Barnes has been great. Grady Dick's been great. Depth hasn't been there. But knowing that you got two guys, at least for the future, including a guy like Emmanuel Quickley off the bench, and Brendan Ingram, who you bring
You
in.
still have R.J. Barrett as well.
Right, and you have R.J. Barrett. They just got to plug in some pieces here and there, get a center, get an elite center.
Yeah.
And I think they're set there. Maybe they try to get Mark Williams. That would be kind of interesting.
That would be interesting.
I don't know if they would. That wouldn't
I don't
really
know.
work actually. But anyway, I think the season's been awful for the Raptors actually, but I think it could definitely be awesome. I could see it being awesome too.
I'm gonna say awful because I really did think the Pacers were the Raptors were gonna kind of sniff a playing spot, but they're not gonna be doing that this season, and at least in my opinion, they're not gonna be doing that this season. And I don't know. I mean, I like what they've been doing to just try to change it up, change the culture, bring it back to that 2019 culture, but with obviously not Kawhi, but you're gonna try to plug in pieces where it matters most. And they went and they tried out to get a superstar, and we'll see how that goes in the future. But as of right now, awful.
Yeah, moving on now to the Philadelphia 76ers. And like I said for the Mavs, if any team is awful, I think it might actually be the Sixers.
I think this is the worst.
This would be the worst. I mean, last year they were third in the East, have been third in the East for a while, fourth in the East, second in the East, first in the East for a while, and had the MVP on their team in the last few years as well. Obviously, he hasn't really been much of a factor at all this year. The only factor for them has really been Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
But Paul George has been terrible. Every game I look at the box, I'm not even kidding you. Every game I look at the box
10
score,
points.
he's shooting like 1 for 6,
Yeah.
but he still has 10 points. He only has like 2 assists, but he's 7 rebounds. It's like this guy's a glorified Brook Lopez. Like I don't know what's going on now. But I don't watch many Sixers games, mostly because I don't really want to watch PG anymore. Sick of watching his step backs and his dribble moves and his dribble combos that he does. But whatever, they've been awful. I think their season's been awful. I think they just gotta wait for next year.
Yeah.
If they get Cooper Flag, oh my God,
don't know
look
what I'll
out.
do.
That would be awful for you.
Yeah.
But I hope one of these East teams gets flagged for my sake. But awful overall for the Sixers. Probably the most awful in the league.
And Charlie could I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Attest?
Yeah. To this, like, I had the biggest smile on my face when we got to this team because this is the happiest I've been to say awful, because this is my least favorite team in the league, and they're awful, and it's awesome to watch the downfall. Part of my language, fuck the process. All right? I love it.
They're terrible.
I love this, and I really like Tyrese Maxey as like a player, and I really respect the guy. So I kind of feel a little bad for him, but the rest of the team, I don't feel anything for that.
I'm with you there.
That whole organization, I don't care, and I'm glad it's awful, and it is awful. So now we'll move on to the Brooklyn Nets, which I have as
what I didn't even mention about the Clippers that they got Ben Simmons now too.
Oh yeah,
That's another piece. I mean, he's been great too. That was a part of the process that didn't work out for them, but I think it's going to work for us. So
Yeah.
shout out Ben Simmons.
And then we have the Brooklyn Nets, and I think it's awkward.
I think it's awesome.
Really? Okay.
I think it's awesome.
I was gonna say awkward just for like the same facts I've been saying with a couple other teams where they're a little bit better than I thought they were gonna be. It's awesome to see that they're better, but it's still a little awkward to see them right now. I don't know if they're gonna get into play-in. I don't know. I just think it's a little awkward. I love that D'Lo's back there. He's been kind of bringing it back, but overall, I think a little awkward.
That's part of my thing. I think it's awesome that they're having as great of a season. I think it's great that they brought back the culture resetter in their team and D'Angelo Russell. I think that really helps their team.
It was huge.
Jordy Fernandez, coach of Team Canada. He's their head coach. I think overall, if this Nets team gets in the playoffs, they're 7-3 in their last 10. They're rolling right now. They got some really good young pieces that are underrated. They really sold at the deadline too. So if they can get in the playoffs here, they had a few really good pieces and they just waived them or got rid of them. And they're only a game out of the playoffs right now, or game and a half out of the play-in right now.
It might be like a 2018-19 Nets that we saw with D'Lo previously.
Yeah, it would just be a fun team.
Yeah.
I think to get in the play-in, I would enjoy watching them over the next team that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But I think this team, their season's been awesome. I think for the future, they're building.
Yeah.
They weren't going to get a top 4 pick this year.
Nope.
But I still think they can get a really good player where they're going to be drafting at. And I think overall, just awesome for the future.
I love rooting for them again because obviously I had to go through a couple of years where I hated them. But I didn't like hating them because I love rooting for the Nets. I mean, it's just they're a fun culture. They're like, like New York's little brother. Like, it's kind of fun that they can always have
yeah.
they can always have the chip on the shoulder and they're going to get through it. But now we'll go on to the Chicago Bulls.
I don't want to see this team play a single
No.
basketball game. They have so many good players, but they every year just disappoint.
Every single year.
They got rid of Zach LaVine finally. They still have Vucevic, Kobe White. Lonzo's back from injury.
Yeah.
He's actually been playing really
He
well.
actually has,
Josh Giddey's there. Alex Caruso's there. They have some really. Actually, sorry, Alex Caruso is not there. He's in OKC.
Oh yeah, he is in OKC
Josh
now.
Giddey is there though.
Yeah.
Who they traded for Alex Caruso. But he's there as well. And they still have all these players. That Chicago culture, the Bulls culture, which hasn't been there for years. And I think the only kind of time that they had it in the last decade was when they retired D Rose's jersey about a few months ago.
Yeah.
But other than that, no electricity in the United Center.
Nope.
And I think it's just been awful for the Bulls. The last decade's been awful. I think they just need to hit a hard reset because they're the only team in the East that has not been at the bottom. They've only been in the middle here in the play-in. The play-in era, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. It's awful. Garbage fire. I don't know what they have to do. I mean, the only thing that's got people in Chicago buzzing right now is the Blackhawks. So, and they're not even that great. They just have a good future though. And Bulls.
What, like Caleb Williams? Is that what you talk about? Like, what do you, if you're in Chicago?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe you're just looking
Ben
forward
Johnson?
to the Cubs.
Ben Johnson? Yeah, I guess you're a Cubs. Man, even then. Ugh.
I mean, the White Sox are garbage too.
They're absolutely terrible.
It's been probably a bad
Tough time
couple of
for
years for
Chicago
Chicago.
sports.
But now we'll go on to Miami Heat.
How are the Sky doing?
I don't know. We're out of the Miami Heat now, and this is a tough one. Excuse me. This is a tough one to rank. I think it's been.
It's been awful.
Yeah.
Lost Jimmy Butler. Their guys have been hurt a lot of the year or not playing well. Bam was an all-star. He's been great for them, obviously. Tyler
He's
Hero's
great.
back from injury now. That's great. But other than that, not really many bright spots on this team. Hayden Highsmith's been all right. Jaime Jaquez has been all right when he's been healthy.
Been okay.
Kevin Love's actually been all right off the bench when he gets a little minutes. But overall, I mean, that's not pushing the needle for you.
No.
But, I think it's been awful for the Heat. Another year in the play-in. Probably not going to actually make the playoffs either. I think it's just been awful.
No, yeah, I'll agree. I mean, I think they had this reputation after that, those couple of great years that they had in Miami, and especially as like the 8 seed going to the finals. I mean, that was a great year for them too. But they're not going to get back there, this year at least. And yeah, it's awful. Now we'll go on to the Atlanta Hawks, and I'm not gonna lie, I think they've kind of been awful too.
They've been awful too, yeah. The expectations that they had with a guy like DeJounte Murray, who they ended up trading. And Trae Young's been really good, but nobody else on
He's
their
the only
team's
one.
really stepped up. Risha Shea is at the number 1 pick. Hasn't been really anything special, at least this year. And I don't really know what direction they're going in. I don't think their fans know. They're willing to spend in free agency, but they just haven't really hit on anybody yet. Yeah. So I think just maybe they trade Trae Young, reset. They've been talking about that for a few years now. Maybe this is finally the time they do it.
This might be. This
really
might be.
But it's another year in the play-in for the Hawks. They're sitting at the 8 seed right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go off.
I'm gonna go awful as well.
The Orlando Magic, your Eastern Conference team.
They probably are. No, they're not my East. No, they're not.
Oh no, sorry, the Cavs are.
Yeah, my number.
But
one,
like last year, you had some buzz for the Magic last year.
they are. They're definitely top 3 for me. It's them, the Raptors, and the Cavs. But the Magic right now with the Wagner brothers, my guys, they've both been kind of hurt. They've been kind of hurt in general, especially Paolo. Hopefully they get healthy soon. I think they're a great team. They're obviously a top 5 team in the East when they're healthy.
I agree.
But right now, sitting at the 7th seed, nothing to be kind of upset about. If they get in the play-in, they're probably going to beat up on those teams. The only bad part is that you get matched up against the Celtics or Cavs if you play in the play-in. So that's going to be tough there. I think overall, though, it's been awful only because where their expectations were. They're supposed to be a top 4 seed in the East. Yeah. And now they're sitting there. Injuries had a lot of part in that, but overall, awful.
I'm going to say awful as well. It was close to awkward just because of injuries, but awful just because, like we said, the expectations where they were supposed to be this season is not even sniffing it. And, I mean, they are only probably 3.5 games back of being the 4 seed, but I don't know if they can catch it right now. And, I don't know, overall, just awful just because where they were supposed to be.
Pistons are next, and this is the team we wanted to talk about. Number 6 seed in the East. 7-game heater right now. Beat the Clips last night.
Eating 2 in their last 10.
Eating 2 in their last 10. They're hot. Monty Williams is their coach. Cade Cunningham's been great.
He has been great.
Jalen Duren's been, their whole team's been playing great right now. I can name Malik Beasley. Obviously, he's been franchise leader, single season and 3-point made already. He's been great. 32 and 26. They haven't had 32 wins combined in the last 3 seasons. I don't think.
I think so.
I think that's a real stat. I'm not even kidding.
No,
the last 2 seasons or something. But overall, this has been awesome for them. It's going to be great for Detroit basketball as a whole. I love when the Pistons are good. Loved when Blake and Draymond, Blake and Drummond were really good back in 2018-19 around there.
Yeah.
Those are special teams. I think they're going to get back to that. It was kind of buzzing in the arena last night in Detroit. I'll say that. So I think it's been awesome.
Yeah. I'm also going to give it an awesome, but I have like a little piggyback on that. So awesome what they've done, how they've gotten here, their storylines, everything up to this point has been awesome. So overall, awesome. But I have to also mention it is a little awkward to see that they are good again because we were used to them being the worst team in the league for many, many years.
By far, yeah.
But overall, great to see them back. Hopefully not that back, but I mean, yeah, awesome season for the Detroit Pistons. I think they're one of those teams where like it says it by itself.
Pacers and Bucks, personally for me, I'm gonna group them in the same tier as awkward.
Yeah,
only
I am
because,
too actually.
The Bucks started off so bad, the play-in tournament actually turned them around a lot.
It did.
They were sitting down where the Sixers are. They moved up where they are, and they're probably going to stay there, around there. Pacers, kind of the same deal as the Magic, except they didn't really have any injuries. I think that's why I'm putting them. I think they should be better than they are. I think they have a lot of good players. I think they should be around where Memphis is in the West. I think this is kind of the same record.
Yeah.
Basically, I think they should be like 4 games better than they are. But nonetheless, I still think it's been a pretty good season for them. But I think it's been awkward for both teams.
I'm actually going to say the same. I mean, the Bucks, just like you mentioned, found themselves down at the beginning of the season, rebounded their season back to where they want to be, and that's top, not worrying about plans. But for the Pacers, it's more awkward because they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And obviously, they got the broom. They got swept out of there. So I thought they were going to come out with a lot more fire this year. And I thought they were really going to itch to be a top 3 seed in the conference.
I agree.
So they wouldn't have to worry about like a Cleveland they would have to worry about one of them, but not both of them on the road to the Eastern Conference Finals area. But it's going to be a tough run for them right now if they don't really turn it around. 6-4 in their last 10. I don't know. I just think there was a little bit more expectations for the Pacers to run it back like they did last year. But I'm not seeing that same fire that we saw last year because there was a crazy fire in the Indiana Pacer locker room. There was a big buzz.
It started with the plan. I think the Bucks are going to have the same kind of thing this year. But yeah, overall, I totally agree with you. Totally agree.
So now we're going on to the New York Knicks. I'll let you go first for this one.
I'm going to say awesome. I really like the Knicks. I really like their team. And I honestly think they're one of the better teams. I think they're a top 3 team in the league, honestly. 37 and 20 right now. They're still 10 games back at the Cavs, which is crazy.
No, yeah, it's nuts.
But I think Thibodeau's been great. Their whole team's been great. It's just been awesome for them. Great for Knicks fans. It's been really fun that the Knicks are good. They haven't really been good for this long, I guess since I've been an NBA fan. 'Cause, I mean, even during the Melo days, I was kind of just starting to get into it, so didn't really feel as real then. But right now, really like it. Really enjoy watching the Knicks games, and I like seeing MSG get hyped for both the Rangers and the Knicks, not just the Rangers. And Johns too. Johns has been great.
Yeah, Johns has been unreal.
I like the Knicks. I think it's been awesome.
This is a tough one because obviously I have a big hatred for the Knicks. Huge rivalry between the Celtics. And I'm going to overall say it's awesome because they've really turned around. Cat was a great addition. Oh my God. It's been a great addition. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, every single time Cat goes up for a bucket, he screams, "Oh my God," every time. If you don't believe me, look it up. I found a 3-minute reel, and they're all different clips.
I saw that too. That's pretty crazy.
Oh my God. But, yeah, so the Knicks overall have been awesome, but as of recent, and as of their best opponents play, they're 0-6 against the Cavs, the Celtics, and there was one more team in there. The Thunder, yeah. The Cavs, the Celtics, and the Thunder 0-6 against the best teams in the league. I'm just curious if they can turn that culture around, because obviously you beat up on the crap teams, it's good, but can you beat up on the big teams? That's gonna be their biggest problem that they're gonna run into eventually in the playoffs, because right now they're allowed to play the Pistons, which is a good matchup for them. They want to play a young team. They want to play an experienced team, but the Knicks have to find their feet when it comes to playing the big games. But overall, it is awesome. I mean, they're 37-20. They've really turned around that franchise, and yes, MSG is back to buzzing for the Knicks again.
Yeah, I'm also going to group in the last two teams here. I know you're going to split them up, but Celtics and Cavs, both the 1 and 2 last year in the East. Both been awesome this year. Cavs especially been awesome, but the Celtics coming off a championship. It's hard to do, obviously. Not as much in the NBA, but still tough to do to be good. Obviously, you see teams like the Sixers, how easy it is to fall, and the Celtics continue to be where they are, even with Porzingis not being there for most of the season, actually. So they've been playing really well, and both teams have been awesome, both on 5 and 7 game win streaks, respectively. Something we've seen a lot from both of them this year. Yeah. Their games have been great that they played. And I think if we get this matchup in the Eastern Conference Finals, we're in for a treat this year.
Yeah. I'm also going to group them in together, but I'll split them up, obviously. They're both awesome. Their seasons are great. I mean, Cleveland's is amazing. I mean, it's awesome what they have done. They turned around the second round exit last year. They got a new coach, which I was honestly questioning at the time, because they made it and they had a good run, and I thought that they were going to stick with the coach, but that was the best move for this team because they didn't do too many offseason transactions, but they got a new coach and a new identity, and their identity's been great, and that's why they're number one team in the NBA at 47-10, and that's why they've been 9-1 in their last 10 games. But who else has been 9-1 in their last 10 games? The Boston Celtics, obviously, my team, but 6 games back, 9-1. In the last 10, 5-game win streak, just came off of a huge win against the Knicks, beat them by 20, and that was great. But the Celtics this season, I feel a lot of the same emotions as last year. Obviously, last year was a little bit more dominant, but I've checked the stats side by side. They're sitting right around the same spot as they were last year. It's just the Cavs are so dominant where it's kind of taken away from the Celtics season this year. 27-4 at home for the Cavs. That is something that's going to be dangerous for the playoffs. Celtics are 18-10 at home, but they're 23-6 on the road, and that's something I like as well. 23-6 on the road is awesome. It's amazing. You want to have
that's what I was kind of pointing out with the Eastern Conference Final matchup. A game in Cleveland. I mean, both those teams with those records. I mean,
they both
6 losses at the minimum for both of them. That's very impressive.
No, yeah. So this is going to be a really interesting way to see how these playoffs come about. Obviously, for the Celtics, the biggest thing that they've been battling this year was injuries. But they're finally getting back to a spot where they can play their full rotation again. And just watching the other, I was on Sunday, and I watched them play the Knicks. I saw a complete team effort for 4 quarters. The third quarter was a little shaky, but it was a complete team. You had Porzingis out there. Horford's coming off the bench, which I love, because I love when he comes off the bench. He's that spark. He's the glue guy. Ever since we lost Marcus Smart, he's been our glue guy. So I love that. I think Peyton Pritchard's the 6th man of the year. I don't think it's debatable. I think he's by far the 6th man of the year. He's been earning it. He's been unreal. His best season of his career so far. And then obviously you have 2 superstars, 2 all-stars, and JB and JT. They've both been great. And JT's on a really good run right now. And so is Jaylen Brown. Derek White is going back to his roots of just making clutch shots, and that's awesome to see. Obviously you have the backbone, Drew Holiday. Best on-guard defenseman, and I don't know, defenseman, and that sounds weird to say in basketball, but he's been great. And the depth's been good. Luke Cornett's had a great year. We had Neemias Queta. He's a, I guess he's a 4th-string center, but he was a 3rd, 2nd for most of the year. His emergence has been great. We had trade away Jalen Springer. Thank you for your time. You're a champion forever in my heart. Obviously no O'Shea Brissett this year. That was a piece. I mean, didn't play in too many games, but I love O'Shea Brissett because he's a Syracuse legend and a Boston Celtics champion. And then, obviously, we have Sam Hauser. He's been great. I think his step back is because Peyton Pritchard steps a little bit more up. But I think Sam Hauser, come playoff time, he's be raining some threes. Obviously, Porzingis has been great. I mean, like Charlie said, I could talk about this team all day. They've been great. Season's overall awesome. Cavs is overall awesome. And if that is, if this is the Eastern Conference Finals, I don't know if I could sleep at night because I will be nervous for every single game.
So let me just ask you now, who do you think's coming out of the East? I'm assuming.
I'm still taking my Celtics any day of the week just because I'm never going to root against my team, and I still think we have that identity, that championship identity. We brought almost everybody back, and to keep the same team basically, except it was literally one guy who left. Oh, it was two guys because Svi Mikhailuk isn't there anymore either. But and we're deep, and people don't realize how deep we really are. Obviously, our starting five is amazing, but we have 3-4 guys on the bench that are willing to get after it. And I think that's the scary thing about the Cavs too, because they're pretty deep, and they have a really good coach, and that's going to be a battle. But I still have my Celtics coming out, but I want to see who you have coming out.
I don't think you're gonna guess it, but I'm taking the New York Knicks.
Oh wow!
Actually,
wow.
yeah, I really enjoy how this team plays. I think they play as a team. I know the Celtics are the basically the epitome of team basketball in today's age, but I think the Knicks play that just as well. I think they play that just as well with the minutes that these guys play. All their starters, I think, are top 6 in the league in minutes.
Yeah, they play a lot of minutes. They play a lot
which
together.
Will help them in the playoffs. I think especially that'll help them because their bench is actually pretty decent as well.
Mm-hmm. It is. They're pretty deep.
And I think that if they could manage those minutes well late in games in the playoffs, I think Tibbs is the coach for that as well. And I think if their fans get behind them, I think if they get some favorable matchups in the playoffs as well. If they beat the Celtics in the second round, that's really what I'm banking on.
Okay.
They beat the Celtics in the second round. I think they beat the Cavs.
I think, that would
in the
make
conference
sense.
finals. And I think they lose to OKC in the finals.
So there's spit out a.
I'm going to say OKC 4-1 or 4-2. 4-2.
So game 5 or 6 they get it done?
6.
At home? Oh no, they'd be away.
It'd be away.
In New York.
It'd be in the Garden.
Wow.
It'd be in the Garden.
That'd be electric.
Yeah.
Obviously I have Celtics Nuggets, which I think I've been predicting for the past 3 years. It's a matchup I really want to see because I think that could be slated as one of the best finals ever. Kind of like a Cavs and Warriors 2016 vibe. Not like a 3-1 deficit vibe, but just like the competitiveness in it. And I think if that does happen, I think the Celtics get it done in 7. It'd be game 7 at home. And that would
be hype.
That'd be something.
That'd be hype. That'd be a great final. I think both those would be great finals. I think there's really not a matchup that we can get this year that I wouldn't be fine with.
If it's one of the top 3 or 4 teams in each conference, I think it could be top 3. I'll do top 3 in each conference. I think that's a watchable finals.
I'm excited. We'll definitely talk about this more. We'll have more episodes about it. But,
oh yeah.
I mean, I'm excited for the end of the season and for the playoffs and for just all the sports that are coming up. The Masters, Madness is coming up, and the Stanley Cup playoffs.
We're coming up on some
Gear up. It's going to be a great time of year. It's going to be just like October, just as good as October, if not better.
I think it is
if
better.
not better.
Yeah, it is better.
Gear up here. Thanks for listening as always. If you haven't already, follow us on our Instagram
at Out of Bounds Podcast with a dot between every single word.
Thank you guys for listening. Let us know if you want more NBA stuff, NHL stuff, whatever you guys want.
Oh yeah.
Let us know. You got anything, Gav?
Go Celtics.
All right, go Clips. All right, thank you guys. Have a day.
Have a day.